Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. I hope you're having an amazing day today. We are waiting for those tubes to fire up all across the fruited plain of the interwebs before we go ahead and get started. Got to make sure the tubes are working, and it looks like they are. And that's good news because we've got a lot of business to get into today. Some nice stuff fresh out of the oven in the January 6th case. Let's do a preview before we get into it. We're going to meet this guy. His name is Gordon Sondland, and he was formerly an ambassador under the Trump administration. And he came out in impeachment trial number 1 and testified against Donald Trump. Well, now he is reversing himself. He's back on board the Trump train, baby. And so we'll play this clip. It's a fun one. And look who else is back on the tubes. Peter Navarro. Welcome back. It's good to see him back, not in custody of the political dictators and tyrants who are currently in charge of our country. So we'll go through those clips. Then I want to go through some of the most recent drops from the Supreme January 6th case, Chutkin. The Supreme January 6th case is what I was going to say. And of course, now it's a 7-pager and we have an answer on this. So there's been a lot of activity. A flurry of things came out today that we'll run through. But Trump, as you can see here, yesterday on the channel, we spent the whole show going through Jack Smith's 165-page, pretty boring dossier against Donald Trump, his trial without a trial. He's a fake prosecutor, as we know, not even legitimate. And just like himself, his motion is also illegitimate. And we read through it. And there were some interesting things about, they forensically examined his cell phone and they were watching him scroll, apparently, from the White House and so on. And we'll see the media seemingly we're hopeful that they just see this like we see it as just much ado about nothing. It's basically the same thing that Liz Cheney was talking about during her little first season of TDS-itis that she dumped on the whole country, unfortunately for all of us. But it wasn't much more than that. But regardless, now Trump has responded and he says, I want equal time. I want equal pages. I want 180 pages back so that I can respond appropriately. And Judge Chutkin came out and issued a ruling on that today. Now, simultaneously with that filing, Trump also dropped this one, which is a supplement to a prior motion to dismiss. And you know how much we like those. So we'll read through this one. Not a huge one, but another fun one, a supplement to a prior motion to dismiss the case. And this is going to be an update saying that the case needs to be dismissed on a bunch of grounds, statutory grounds, constitutional arguments, but we're applying these to the new indictment because Jack Smith needed to do it again. His first draft of the indictment wasn't so hot. So he had to do it again to get rid of all the immunity stuff, and that's why we're back. Then we've got some other clips. Trump was out there. He was responding to this. Someone asked him about Jack Smith's new filing. We'll see what he said. And then more reaction out and about because this gal is back. Clavicle gal. Clavicle girl who made up the whole story about Trump reaching across the length of the presidential vehicle, grabbing a Secret Service driver by the clavicle and almost murdering him on that fateful day. Well, she's back. And boy, we talked about it yesterday. We had an interview with Joseph Sweeney, ex-CIA lawyer here last week. And there's a nice term in his book called a propaganda cluster bomb, right? And he's a CIA guy, so he knows. So they would drop these cluster bombs and boom, are we in the middle of one? It's popping off all over the place. They dropped Jack's dossier. They have Cassidy Hutchinson, clavicle girl. They dug her back out of the gutter and they said, hey, let's put you back on TV. And then they also have Cheney. Liz Cheney's out hanging with Kamala. It's like these people. Could it be any more transparent? Probably, yeah, probably could. And I'm sure it's going to get even worse. But we got Chuck Grassley's responding to the Jack dossier. And Peter Navarro himself had a nice clip. And so we'll see what he said. Now, Congress is also looking into this. We saw that there was testimony last week, or perhaps the week before, from our friends at Empower Oversight. And IG Horowitz, the Inspector General over with the DOJ, who's investigating January 6th, including the very pertinent question of whether or not there were federal agents or confidential human sources or informants or colleagues or acquaintances or whatever, however they want to classify them. How many of them were there on January 6th? Congress is saying, please let us know. Okay, it's a pretty dang important question, and the election is right around the corner. So we'll see what Congress said from the Judiciary Committee over to the Honorable Merrick Garland. Then we have an update at the border because, woo, this is bad. You see, this is a new report from the Office of the Inspector General that just dropped last day of September saying that ICE and TSA and Border Patrol, they're all terrible. They did not fully assess the risks associated with releasing non-citizens without ID into the country. Oh, and it's not just that, but they're also boarding domestic flights, flying all over the place. And this one is interesting because there are some nice redactions inside. As you'll see, they'll walk us through the Border Patrol app. They'll walk us through how you can just register, essentially. Come in, give them some biographical information. Just say, yeah, I'm this guy from whatever, as far as border, name, date of birth, whatever. Take a picture of yourself. And then, oh, redacted. Huh. Oh, no. What's happening? Does anybody know? Well, they do. Are they going to tell us? No, they don't want to tell us. The conclusion? We'll see what we can fill in. So we'll read through this report and see what's inside. It's not good. And we have reaction, Bill Malugin, as usual, on top of this. He has statements from Homeland and from other federal dumpster fire agencies. And then we'll see what's happening in Arizona. Pretty important swing state. And our friends over at America First Legal filed suit in this state. And they have questions about this voting problem we have. Apparently now, the number of people that are in a problematic category in the state of Arizona is about 210,000. And that's up from 80 to 90,000. People are asking some questions about this. In fact, I'm wondering if there's something nefarious going on. And so we'll take a look at this filing. It's a new lawsuit, and the election is right around the corner. Arizona, of course, a very important swing state, and we got to get to the bottom of what's happening here. So we'll poke around and see what's inside this filing from James Rogers, America First Legal, in the House. Various exhibits. Okay, so some record requests. Good. All right, so we're excited to get into all of this and more, my friends. We're very grateful that you are here and with us. I hope your week is outstanding. You're accomplishing all the things you've set your mind to. Tomorrow's a beautiful Friday, and we're excited about that too. Now, before we get into any business on the day, we, of course, sometimes need to pause and recognize that we live in the most advanced era in human history. Now, there's never been more medical breakthroughs than there are right now. So if that's the case, why are millions of Americans more unhealthy and overweight now than they've ever been? Now, according to U.S. board-certified physician and expert nutritionist, her name is Dr. Amy Lee, seen here. One of the main reasons is 3 harmful foods that are being passed off as health foods that are done and shared all over the country. Now, wait till you hear this. Because these foods can cause weight gain, clog your digestive tract, deplete your energy, and wreck your skin, they're banned in other countries. Yet, shockingly, they're still legal in the U.S., and it's time someone shines some light on what they are. And Dr. Amy Lee does just that. While explaining how the side effects from these foods are wreaking havoc on the health of millions of Americans, she'll tell you more in this video. The good news, it's easy to stop and reverse the damage by just learning which foods to avoid and how to spot them so you can have easier weight loss, smooth digestion, and vibrant energy. And so to find out what these 3 fake health foods are, go to 3harmfulfoods.com/RG, link in the description below. That's 3 harmfulfoods.com/RG, or click the link in the description. After years of study, extensive study, Dr. Amy Lee put together this revealing video totally free to you and to the public. And so never get duped by these foods again. Find out everything you need to know. 3harmfulfoods.com/RG, or just click the link to learn more about the foods. We got to be healthy and outlift the left, baby. All right, so check that out. Link in the description. And thanks for supporting our sponsors of the show. Now, before we continue, tomorrow at 10:15, your boy is speaking. Defend Democracy virtual conference. Get your ticket. The link is down in the description below. 10:15, we're going to do a members stream in the morning. We're going to defenddemocracy.com. So go get your ticket, my friends. Rachel Alexander's going to be there. Your boy's going to be there. I'm speaking. You also know Dylan Law Group is going to be there. Amazing. We got John Eastman is going to be there. Oh my gosh. John Saylor. We have Merrill Ness, Trevor Luden, Michael Goldstein. And remember, Joseph Sweeney's going to be there. So grab your tickets. I want to make sure we're supporting these people. I'm not affiliated with them other than just speaking at the thing. And it's going to be a great conference. So you can learn a lot. Grab your tickets. And of course, we'll see you tomorrow. And we're looking forward to that. So 10:15 my time. It's going to be 1:15 Eastern time. And it's going to be a great conference. So check it out. Links in the description. All right. Thank you for that. Now, without any further ado, let's get into it. A J6. No, this is not that story. An impeachment witness has now reversed course. He's back on the Trump train, baby. This guy, Gordon Sondland, is an American businessman, was at one point a United States ambassador under the Trump administration, but then he testified at the Trump impeachment trial #1, which was fake. Trump said, "You got to resign, buddy," and he refused. So Sondland was fired by Trump in 2020. Wow. So he must hate Trump, right? Must never want to vote for him again because of the danger to democracy and blah, blah, blah. Wrong. He was invited onto this show called MSNBC's The Beat, not to be confused with Doug Emhoff. It's another host. But this is what he said on the show.
A no for you after that. Why was it important for you to say no more Trump because of his January 6th conduct? And do you stand by that?
No, I don't stand by it. And I'll tell you why. I've now lived 4 years under the Biden-Harris policies. And I have to say that those policies are not only becoming an existential threat to our country's way of life, but to our allies as well.
So when you, and it has to, Ambassador, I'll let you finish, but this is so striking. You said it was a no for me after that, after January 6th. I did. And here we are right now.
I did.
And you're saying it's a yes for you.
It is a yes for me. It is an absolute yes for me. That is how badly the Biden-Harris team have prosecuted their job.
But the whole point you seem to be making was that January 6th and that kind of attack on democracy is bigger than any policy difference.
I am seeing so many attacks on democracy that eclipse January 6th.
So I want to ask Sarah,
if you want to ask me what those are, I'm happy.
It's true. Guy's right. Guy's true. He's like, shoot, man. I testified against Trump, and now I have to vote for the guy because Kamala and Biden have wrecked everything. They're wrecking free speech. They're prosecuting their political opponents. They're trying to take their political opponents off the ballot. Borders wide open. We're being invaded by foreigners. I mean, the whole thing's a disaster. And look at Navarro, man, that little S-eating grin over there. Sorry about that. So a great clip. Welcome aboard. You know, we're always unhappy when people get off the Trump train. Usually it's some sort of delusion or childhood trauma or something they have to deal with. But welcome back. Come on back. Welcome back. We're glad to see you. And we appreciate you showing up on Doug Emhoff's favorite MSNBC show called The Beat with Ari. He loves it. Never misses it. So as you can see, there's some changing of opinion on Trump's dictatorship-ness, and now he's back on the Trump train. So let's go back through what's happening in the January 6th case. From Judge Chutkan's courtroom, Donald Trump is responding to special counsel, so-called illegal prosecutor Jack Smith's 165-page so-called opening brief that was boring and repetitive, and that's feeling like it's largely being forgotten by the media. They're talking about it a little bit, but there's no big salivating, in there, really, because we've already been beating that horse to death thanks to Liz Cheney for the last 3.5 years. But here is what Trump's defense team said in response. They said, all right, listen, Judge, You gave Jack Smith 165 pages. Now, guess what? We want 180 pages back. We also want a 5-week extension. So this is curious, isn't this? Watch. Of the deadline to file his response, Trump's, and additional leave for a surreply. So the kind of the final word, we'll think of that as, because we're going to see they combine some motions and there's different filings. And so Trump will ultimately, it looks like, have the final word on these issues by December 19th is what he's requesting. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because Jack Smith just dropped his big load of garbage for everyone to read. He thought it was going to be, I guess, a shocking revelation. But what we saw was a cherry-picked litany of phone calls and text messages, and you can make anybody look bad in those situations. And what we actually saw was evidence that there was clear indicia and evidence of Trump's mental state as actually not pursuing the crazy claims. No, that doesn't sound logical. We don't have evidence of that, they said. We don't have evidence of that. So they didn't pursue it. So if this was about fraud, why is Trump doing that? Well, it's because it's not. So even in his own filing, there were bits in there that were logically inconsistent, maybe because it was drafted by highlighter girl Molly, but we don't know. But if that is out, right, that's a big meatball from Jack Smith. Wouldn't you think to yourself, if this is you, I got to respond to this. I got to get my take on this out, at least before the election, so that the public hears our side of the story. But no, Trump's not even asking for that. He says, how about we just, we'll file it after the election. Okay, November 21st. We'll file our response. We want an extension. They don't even care. Whatever. All right. They read it. You filed it. Okay. They're not racing to get anything done. So their strategy from a legal perspective is not about the election, really. And right now it's just about, push it back. The election will be over. So ultimately, it feels like Trump is, in a way, declaring victory. Because if Trump, again, one main priority in all of this, of course, is to be right, to win, to get the case dismissed, to show Jack Smith's corrupt and the DOJ's reckless and all the things. But the other idea is that if you postpone it long enough, strategically speaking, from a tactical perspective, Trump wins the election, takes over the DOJ, comes in there, gets rid of Jack Smith. So part of this, then Trump is saying, well, we'll file our final say on this in December. Oh, great. And there'll be other issues and they'll be appealable. So in other words, Trump is just kicking this can down the road again. Say, oh, sure, push it. And there's no urgency here to respond to the merits or the substance of Jack's filing. Why? Why is there no urgency there? Because there's nothing in the motion. So they says, all right, so we'll respond, right? We'll come, and the judge is going to alter these deadlines, so we'll come back. But you see here, they want a 5-week extension, so there's no urgency to respond. Because they think it was as flat as we do. Now, the special counsel returned a superseding indictment. Here's the background. On August 27th, this is Jack Smith's second attempt. Book report, this is not the book report, this is the indictment. But he had to strip from the first indictment the immune conduct, which he goofed and put in there. Now, thereafter, the parties filed a joint status report. Now, in the submission, Jack requested leave to file an opening brief, which we read. Now, that it claimed would justify its own charging instrument to explain why the immunity in the Supreme Court case doesn't apply to Trump in this new indictment. Now, Trump objected to this because it violates criminal procedure. No one's ever seen an opening brief of 165 pages and unconstitutionally deprives him of his Sixth Amendment rights to confront his accusers, to call and cross-examine witnesses, the confrontation clause. Now, instead, Trump requested a standard briefing sequence, which would have been ordinary, which would have entailed President Trump to raise issues, and the court could have resolved several threshold questions of law before even entertaining all of this other stuff. We didn't need to see Jack Smith's 165 pages if this case would have been dismissed because we answered this question. Like, do we need to do all that work? If we just answer this, then we're going to be done. Now, the court held a hearing on September 5th at the hearing, which Chutkan had postponed for 3 weeks at Jack's request. Jack disclosed that its proposed immunity briefing was already underway. Wait, Jack was already working on it? What? But that it required an additional 3 weeks to finish drafting so it could package all of its exhibits, right? Now, despite this prior work, the special counsel, Jack, did not indicate that its proposed brief would exceed the district's page limits at that time, right? So back at this date, Jack's like, yeah, we'll just follow the normal submission rules, standard page lengths, and more. But over President Trump's objection, they said, no, you can't submit an opening brief. This is totally outside of the ordinary. What kind of ridiculousness is this? The court granted the request anyways. And moreover, the court also granted Jack's request for an additional 3 weeks so he could finish his drafting. They set a deadline late September. Now, the court did not alter the applicable page limits at that time either. And based on those standard limits, they ordered Trump to respond by the 17th. Then Jack would respond by late October. The court also indicated that although this schedule would allow Jack to file 2 briefs instead of the 1, that it wasn't unfair because if Trump wants to file a surreply, right, if Trump wants to have the last word, he can ask for leave to have the surreply. So it's just a matter of who goes first. It doesn't really matter, but we'll give you the last word. So finally, the court ordered that Trump submit replies and supplement his statutory motion, which we'll read, and file a motion to leave to dismiss the appointments and the appropriations clauses by these dates. So Trump continues, he says. So then, on September 21st, less than a week before Jack's big immunity brief was due that we read yesterday, Jack moved to quadruple its applicable page limits. Can I have a bunch more space? Because I'm going to just dump everything we have. Jack notified Trump that he would seek this relief just 1 day before he sent it into the judge. Trump objected. He said, Your Honor, objection, this is unprecedented. The unprecedented and irregular nature of the office's approach on remand is ridiculous. But the court overruled President Trump's objection, holding that the length and the breadth of the government's brief was appropriate because it was uniquely challenging to address immunity issues when you're prosecuting political opponents. My words. Then on September 26th, Jack filed its oversized brief, together with an extensive appendix and hundreds of exhibits all under seal, which we read the brief, but the exhibits and the referenced items are still under seal. Jack further moved to seal an unredacted copy of its brief while proposing redactions for the public filing, and the court ordered that Trump respond to those things, and so they did. Now they say, Your Honor, Judge Chutkan, in the January 6th case, this court should grant Trump 180 pages to match what you gave Jack. He had 165 pages plus another 15 for the other motion. The court has decided over Trump's objections that extensive factual submissions are appropriate now. And so if you've decided that, which we disagree with, Trump must have an equal opportunity to address and submit this and to rebut Jack's misleading submissions. So Trump should have 180 pages. And in addition to that, Your Honor, Trump also wants a 5-week extension of this filing deadline. This resembles the 3-week extension that you gave to Jack Smith back in August. In total, the requested extension would give Trump 8 weeks to file his response, which approximates the 6 weeks that you gave him. Here's why we need it. The enormous size of Jack's filing is going to take substantial time to review, and it was a big document. We flew through it yesterday, but a proper review of this is going to be massive. You saw all the footnotes. I mean, it was very, very extensive. The important issues at stake, you're going to verify all their claims, check that, cross-reference, make sure it says what they say it says and all the stuff. Like the underlying immunity question, it raises multiple unprecedented, momentous questions about the powers of the president. So, as Chutkan indicated previously, Judge, Trump should have the same time and sufficient time to respond. You even said, Your Honor, you can have time to respond during the hearing. You can have additional time during those 3 weeks. Now here, given the extraordinary and only recently disclosed quadrupling of the submission length, we need 5 weeks. No one's going to be prejudiced by this. At the same time, Trump will continue his work on other pending motions. We have a bunch of stuff that's due in the near future, and this is an enormous undertaking to review these hundreds of exhibits. So to do that by the 17th is not practical. It's at odds with what the Supreme Court said we need to do here. So we need to postpone this until after the election. Now, finally, Trump also does want to file the final word, the surreply. As noted above, both President Trump's opposition says under ordinary circumstances, Trump would have every right to file a reply in support of his motion. And so it's not just about going first. Additionally, a surreply would not provide Trump any unfair advantage, and the judge is going to grant him that. So the court should grant President Trump the right to file a 180-page response, including a surreply, and does not object to any of, it looks like Jack doesn't object to a 180-page limit, but does oppose the deadline extension and for a surreply. All right, so Jack is objecting to two things there. And so let's see what Chutkan has ultimately ruled on here, because we do have that. And let me pull that up in this filing here, which I thought I had open. My apologies. Let's get it right here because it is fresh out of the oven. From the docket on the J6 case, here is what Chutkan ordered. Trump's motion to extend page limits is hereby granted in part and denied in part. Let's see. The court's order is modified as follows. Trump's combined response and renewed motion to dismiss is due by November 7th, right? So 2 days after the election, and may include up to 180 pages. The government's combined reply and opposition is due by November 21st, and then Trump may file his reply as to some and his surreply as to other issues by December 5th, 2024. So everything is getting postponed until after the election, which is curious. So we're not going to see Trump's response on this big fat dossier from Jack for a while, which is very interesting. It's almost like they're not even worried about it. So I think that says something there. They're not racing to get something on the record so that the political consequences are considered. It's just kind of let sleeping dogs lie. Just, let it go. We don't even need to talk about it. It's like not addressing it, right? Postponing it to not even address it. Just let it burn out. Not bad. All right, so we have another filing. Now, President Trump filed a supplement to his motion to dismiss the January 6th case in Judge Chutkan's courtroom. The District of Columbia, the president says the following, says, all right, listen, Judge, President Trump respectfully submits this motion to supplement what's already been filed. The superseding indictment, Jack's second attempt, stretches generally applicable statutes and laws beyond their breaking point. Based on false claims that President Trump is somehow responsible for events at the Capitol. Now, Jack's office seeks to assign blame for events that Trump did not control and took action to protect against, actually. And Jack blatantly ignores the fact that federal prosecutors have taken the opposite position in the district. Referencing this, referencing another case, U.S. versus Carpenter. So it's apparently of no consequence to the office and those who support Jack's efforts that former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi was caught on a previously undisclosed video accepting responsibility for the events at the Capitol. Even one of the office's star witnesses, General Mark Milley, acknowledged long before charges were brought in this case that President Trump had instructed the Department of Defense on January 3rd, we read this, to, quote, make sure that you have sufficient National Guard or soldiers to make sure it's a safe event. General Mark Milley, Mr. White Rage himself, was probably too preoccupied with his internal monologue to come out and speak publicly about the fact that he said that. And that's referencing the Inspector General's report, which we read here, and that document was highly redacted in that area. So they covered it up, is the point. However, one thing that Jack's office cannot ignore or hide from is binding precedent, punks. The Supreme Court decision in the Fisher case is yet another key application of the rule of law to reject lawfare overreach that's targeting Trump. Fisher requires the dismissal of counts 2 and 3 of this indictment, and its logic fatally undermines counts 1 and 4 as well. So this case is about to die. Section 15C12, remember, this was the issue about corruptly and whether it was a broad interpretation of the statute or whether it actually, like, you actually had to destroy a document used in a proceeding. Like, could you corruptly interfere with the proceeding, or did you have to, like, physically destroy something? They said it was enacted in response to a corporate document shredding issue, okay? That's why Congress passed that law, because people were shredding, literally, that bears no resemblance at all in the superseding indictment. Nobody was shredding documents at the Capitol, except the Secret Service and their text messages. Like, oh, crap. Under Fisher, the office may not use the statute as a catch-all provision to criminalize otherwise lawful activities that are selectively mischaracterized as obstructive by those with opposing political views. As Fisher, that case confirms, if you're going to charge that statute, the 15C12 statute, it requires proof of evidence impairment, like evidence was actually impaired, documents destroyed, wrecked, mutilated, whatever, coupled with corrupt intent. Like you wanted to manipulate that document so that it would be perverted for the proceeding. Narrow, very particular set of consequences and circumstances. Now, once stripped of President Trump's official acts subject to immunity and protected First Amendment political advocacy, because Jack deleted all that from indictment number 1, the superseding indictment lacks sufficient factual allegations to support either element as required by counts 2 and 3. So Jack got rid of all the bad stuff and, like, sorry, he took a red pen to it, just like we're doing here. Said, oops, that's immune. Oops, that's immune. Oops, that's First Amendment. Oops, that's First Amendment. And then came back. And they said, okay, well, he's still charging this. Trump expressed sincere and valid concerns about the integrity of 2020, as he is allowed to do as the chief executive. And he was part of open and public discussion about the use of the contingent slates of electors in a manner consistent with historical practice and contemplated by the then existing version of the Electoral Count Act that they modified. They said, oh, you didn't have any power to do any of those things that you claim. Oh, really? Then why'd you change the law? To take away those powers, because they were there in the first place. And Trump was open about it, right? They were having hearings about this. Rudy Giuliani was on TV like every day. We were live streaming them, talking about this stuff. It wasn't some secret conspiracy. It was all open and done in the public. The congressional record from J6 reflects lawful debates on certificate objections that are contemplated by the law. Everything that was happening was part of the process, as well as acknowledgement of the historical precedent for the contingent slates. There is no precedent at all for a criminal prosecution based on the record. There is precedent for doing what the electors did. There's no precedent for prosecuting them. Now, under these circumstances, Jack's office cannot establish the required nexus between the alleged obstruction and any evidence used in the certification proceeding. You can't show there's an overlap, or that anyone even acted with corrupt intent. And so Fisher, the Supreme Court case, forecloses the office's Jack's efforts to rely on events at the Capitol to support those charges. He can't do that anymore. And the superseding indictment also does not sufficiently allege that Trump impaired or intended to impair or did any damage to any document that was ever used in an official proceeding. So you can't meet the elements. You can't check the boxes. The limiting interpretation that the Supreme Court applied to the statute also strongly supports Trump's narrower interpretation of that section as charged in that count. So in other words, if you were overbroad here, Jack, you're probably overbroad here in this count and here in count 4, because that interpretation is going to carry over. You can't, they expanded and perverted all of these statutes in order to charge him. And so therefore, this should all be dismissed. Now, here's some discussion. Trump's defense writes, in Fisher, the Supreme Court rejected the unbounded interpretation of this statute, 1512C2. Biden and Harris created it. Their interpretation. They expanded it without any limits, like all of the other prosecutors we talk about, like Letitia James did to prosecute Trump, like Fani Willis did to create her RICO. Same concept. And that threatened to override Congress's careful delineation of which penalties were appropriate for which offenses. You have criminal conduct that requires action, and then you match the penalties to that action. That's why the penalty for robbery is different than shoplifting, because there's different conduct. Now, the petitioner in Fisher was charged with a violation of 1512C2, based on allegations that he was part of a crowd that trespassed into the Capitol. Did you hear anything about destruction of documents? No. Was involved in a physical confrontation with law enforcement and delayed the certification process. Is that it? Is that the interference? Well, the Supreme Court overruled a divided panel from the lower court, and they said, no, that charge was properly dismissed. Okay, there was no interference of the documents. The law says X, Y, and Z. You didn't hit those. So dismissal was appropriate because this provision, which has been perverted by our corrupt government, okay, they're supposed to do justice. They're not supposed to find statutes that they can use to enable them to charge anybody they want anywhere, anytime. And the Supreme Court said that this cannot be used as a catch-all provision that reaches far beyond the document shredding that's criminalized and similar scenarios that prompted the legislation in the first place. To prove a violation of 1512C2, the government must establish that the defendant, the person charged, impaired something for use in an official proceeding, records, documents, something, or other things used in the proceeding or attempted to do so. It's very specific. Records, documents, objects, something, not just delaying the certification. The Fisher Court rejected, which is how our laws should be, right? You want specificity so you have notice about what the charges are. We don't want to give our government bureaucrats and Tish James blanket power to do whatever they want. Jack Smith, not even a legal prosecutor. The Fisher Court rejected the government's novel interpretation that says they can do whatever they want anywhere because it would wrongly criminalize a broad swath of prosaic conduct, exposing activists and lobbyists alike to decades in prison. Which, now that they mention it, I guess it depends who's in charge of that rule. You know what I'm saying? Now, those peculiar results underscore the implausibility of the government's interpretation. But before Fisher was decided, Harris and their DOJ had used 15C12 to either charge or convict 259 people who didn't touch documents. Probably. Maybe some of them did. But the DOJ continues to assess. Let me back up on that. I'm sure they didn't touch the documents necessary in the actual proceeding, right? If they went into Pelosi's office and were looking at her stock records, like, oh my gosh, wow, that's a great play. No wonder she does so well. If they're reading her stock reports, that's not used officially in the proceeding. So that still doesn't apply. So did 259 people all interfere with the transition of power electoral ballot documents? No, but the DOJ charged them anyways because they're not about justice. They're about prosecuting their opponents. And now the DOJ is continuing to assess many of those cases, but has already acknowledged thus far that the decision severely undermined their position in at least 100 of them. Oops. Now, specifically, so far as has been disclosed, the decision forced prosecutors to consent to the dismissal of 40 cases that had been adjudicated before the Supreme Court issued Fisher, and to abandon that for 60 more of those defendants. 100 cases gone. Which is excellent news because they shouldn't have been charged in the first place. You think those people are going to get their lives and time back? No. Trump's case should be among the next to be abandoned, and if not, it should be dismissed. Now, Jack's office relied in his indictment on immune conduct to oppose Trump's motion to dismiss. The superseding indictment contains many of the same allegations, and Fisher validates President Trump's arguments regarding the misuse of 15C2 in this case. And so therefore, everything else needs to go. Prior to Fisher, Trump argued in the motion that the violation of C2 was defective because submitting contingent slates of electors and alternate certificates and advocating that Pence take action was not obstructive at all. A conspiracy with that non-obstructive object, which is to actually do his job, does not violate the law. And Trump's interpretation is also endorsed by Fisher. And we've also got First Amendment protections that come into play as well. Now, the special counsel's office opposed the motion. They argued that the charges were consistent with the D.C. Circuit split, and the Supreme Court later overruled. The office proceeded then to use fanciful and inaccurate language to describe actions by President Trump and his advisors that are subject to presidential immunity. As Trump will establish in his forthcoming response, which we're looking forward to read, the challenged conduct, when described accurately, when it's placed in context, it's stripped of the office's rhetoric. It is official because it was undertaken to ensure the integrity and the proper administration of the federal election, right? So Jack Smith just emotionally conjugates the language. And you see how you can do this, right? It's very simple to change language from emotional to non-emotional. You can just say, for example, easy example, he went home. We're describing a situation where a person is in one location and then leaves. Like the physical act. A person leaves a location to a new location. He went home. Sounds pretty benign. He fled the scene. Sounds different. Okay? So if a cop shows up and says that somebody went home, that's just a witness went home. If a cop shows up, he fled the scene, right? It's different, but it can be the same conduct. One implies things a little different than the other. So they do that in an entire filing. It's all Trump fled the scene rather than Trump went home kind of a situation. So, for example, the office relied in their motion on an alleged communication that said, within the executive branch. However, the office excised that allegation from the superseding indictment. That's interesting. So the indictment is getting rid of that, but then they reintroduced it and all others like it because the Supreme Court held that Trump is absolutely immune from prosecution. So they took their red pen and anything within the executive branch kind of got deleted. They also cited exaggerated allegations about Trump's interaction with Pence, which they included in the superseding indictment as well. Now, under Fisher, these allegations do not concern the type of evidence impairment that is within the scope of 15C12. It's about destroying documents. But they're talking about Pence. And the Supreme Court also held that Trump is at least presumptively immune from prosecution based on those interactions. Now, Jack's office also pointed to alleged interactions with state officials, and those allegations are also included in the superseding indictment. The allegations lack the required nexus to evidence impairment. No evidence was destroyed based on that. And Trump will also establish that these communications are also subject to immunity. In fact, the Supreme Court said that the president, quote, may speak on and discuss such matters with state officials, even with no specific responsibility, requires his communication to encourage them to act in a manner that, from the president's view, promotes the public good, right? The president can talk to state people. He's the president of the country. Doesn't need a specific responsibility to do that. It's part of the job. This follows from the president's broad power to speak on matters of public concern, presidential power, immune, which includes public communications about the fairness and the integrity of federal elections. The president can talk about that. That's part of the job. Take care clause of the Constitution says that. And so the Supreme Court wrote all that in there, but Jack criminalized that. Jack's office also sought to defend the 1512 charges based on their false allegations relating to the responsibility for the events of J6. And they continue to do so, including in their second indictment, where they falsely allege that Trump sought to leverage the events to retain power. These allegations do not render Trump factually or legally responsible, let alone criminally culpable for the actions of others. Leveraging the events to retain power, he's not liable for that. Absent direct calls to imminent lawless action, with the office, which Jack's office does not even come close to alleging, bedrock First Amendment principles permit public speakers, including Trump on J6, to speak their mind without fear of criminal prosecution for the unlawful acts of others, the heckler's veto. See Brandenburg versus Ohio, Watts versus United States. Now, in addition to this, Jack, this theory relies on an impermissible and since rejected all-encompassing interpretation in Fisher. And that's not how it is anymore because of SCOTUS. Now, in opposition to the motion, the office argued that 1512C2 applies in this case, based on a conclusory claim that preventing members of Congress from validating state certificates is evidence-focused obstruction, okay? So just causing the congressmen and women and unidentified Democrats to dissipate is enough. That is the obstruction and the impairment. But similarly, in the superseding indictment, Jack falsely alleges that Trump generally hoped to, quote, obstruct or impede the proceeding. This is the same argument that they rejected in Fisher, where the petitioner was alleged to have delayed the certification process. So Jack can't rebundle that here. The Fisher court applied the restraint principle cited by Trump, saying that the power of punishment is vested in the legislative, not judicial department, and so they can pass a law to criminalize that stuff. Thus, Fisher makes clear that baseless allegations of general obstruction alone is not enough to charge somebody. It's an evidence-focused statute. It's about destruction of evidence, and there's no mens rea elements here. Actions taken by Trump as president based on the concern about the fairness and the integrity of the election were not undertaken corruptly under the law and did not result in evidence impairment at the certification proceeding at all. The focus of 1512C2 is narrowly tailored to documents and objects that are used in the proceeding. The indictment makes no allegation at all that documents were stolen or harmed or damaged or concealed in any way. Rather, the certificates remained under official control at all times. Right, and the other J6ers didn't do it either. Available for use and in fact used during the certification proceeding. So no documents were destroyed. It's all fake charges. Physical movement also of the Electoral College certificates also doesn't support the charges. So you literally, like, criminal charges, you have different checkboxes you need to hit. They're saying that the movement of the certificates caused the delay, and so the physical from one location to another location is the obstruction. They also rely in part on what amounts to impermissible, they call it, this is fun, an impermissible, quote, certificate movement theory. Wow. That's smart lawyering there, Jack. Under this theory, the document, the 1512C document, is the legitimate electors, which staffers evacuated from the Senate after the crowd broke into the building. Okay, so those are the check boxes. It's those documents that were the obstructed documents, the destroyed documents. The incidental movement of documents from one room to another did not, as a matter of law, impair those documents. Jack's office has also failed to allege that Trump intended to impair the integrity or the availability of those documents. And the indictment also does not even allege that Trump even considered the status of these legitimate certificates in any way, didn't even mention them, let alone intended to cause the movement of those documents or to keep them away from Congress. The documents were simply moved by the functionaries from one room to another until Congress reconvened. Nothing was destroyed at all. If these ministerial acts that are routinely performed by government functionaries during adjournments could form the basis of criminal charges, then the restrictions of the Supreme Court would be rendered dead letter law, and we're not allowed to do that. So, similarly, the transmission of these contingent certificates also does not support the charges. Jack's office next relies on the transmission of alternate certificates, and that also fails. Some of the certificates were refused by the archivist and Pence, and so the office is not adequately alleged that those objects impacted the proceeding in any way. Yeah, a bunch of people sent a bunch of stuff in, so what? In reality, far from an impediment to the certification proceeding, the then existing version of the Electoral Count Act acknowledged the possibility that more than one return or paper purporting to be a certificate, and contemplated that Congress would consider and pass upon all the certificates and papers purporting to be certificates. So interesting. They sent in a bunch of stuff purporting to be exactly what the law said they could do under U.S. Code. The statute set forth a procedure for objections and resolution of authenticity disputes. I'm looking at two slates. This one appears to be signed by the governor and the legislature. This one appears to have come from Rudy Giuliani. I think I'll take this one as the official one and go in and authenticate that one, which was the process. Then they changed it. Upon reading of any such certificate or paper, the president of the Senate which is the vice president, Pence, shall call for objections, if any. Okay, he holds them up. Are there any objections? And then there were going to be. Even Ted Cruz was talking about calling for a pause and more before they then stopped that from happening because they didn't want anybody to look at it. And then they initiated the op. So because these tasks were required by the Electoral Count Act, actual and attempted transmission, they were required, of alternate certificates did nothing to impair the integrity or the availability of any certificates, all of which remain unaffected and available. No documents were destroyed at all. And so based on these specific features of the Electoral Count Act, which they changed, the Supreme Court's reference to creating false evidence cannot save those two counts. The allegations relating to alternate certificates are consistent with the law, with the Electoral Count Act processes. It's not obstruction to it. They're doing what it said to do. The situation is therefore unlike the cases cited in these other cases, where the defendant forged a court order that caused a litigant to withdraw a filing and contact a judge and cause the magistrate to issue another order explaining the falsity of the forged order. Okay, it's not that. This is about a proceeding. They followed the process to resolve the objections as required by the law. They didn't impair anything by sending in additional copies of certificates. There is no allegation that any certificates, including the ones the office regards as legitimate, were replaced or altered or destroyed at all. The certificates were there. They remained available for use, unblemished completely during the certification proceeding. And so therefore, the factual allegations by Jack's office reflect activities that were consistent with the law and not an obstacle to it. And so that is fatal to their transmission theory because the law was not broken. Now, their office has ignored these aspects of the operative version of the law, instead claimed that it was political jousting, that political jousting was not allowed that day. President Trump's constitutionally protected and immune advocacy regarding decisions Congress and the vice president could or should make in connection with the certification didn't obstruct anything, and it didn't impair the availability or the integrity for use in an official proceeding of records, documents, or objects. In fact, there were entirely lawful debates about the certificate objections by members of Congress on January 6th. All of them were well aware of the contingent slates of electors, which had been discussed publicly in advance of the proceeding, and some of the legislators and legislators expressed sincere and widely shared concerns about the integrity of the election. Here's some excerpts from Congress. The Electoral Count Act explicitly allows objections such as this one for votes that were not regularly given. This objection is for the state of Arizona, but it is broader than that. It's an objection for all 6 of the contested states to have a credible, objective, impartial body hear the evidence and make a conclusive determination. That would benefit both sides. That would improve the legitimacy of this election. Congressperson. They did an end run around the Constitution in every state that Republicans will object to today. Every single one. It was a pattern. It was their template. They did it in Arizona. They did it in Georgia. They did it in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Wisconsin, another one. I joined the objection to counting votes of electors from my home state of Arizona. Since we are convinced that the election laws in Arizona and some other states were changed because they changed them, usurping the legislature and their legislative powers. We have a responsibility today. The slates of electors produced under those modified laws are not ratified by the legislature. They're entered into by corrupt secretaries of state and private third parties. They're not regularly given. They're not lawfully certified. And so they object. Someone from Pennsylvania. The bottom line for my constituents is that Pennsylvania's officials at all levels failed to conduct a uniform and legal election. And for that reason, they inappropriately and unlawfully certified the state's electors. You're allowed to make those objections. You're allowed to say those things. It's been happening in our Congress forever. Only now are people being prosecuted under this theory. Now, to the extent that Trump's official acts contributed to or otherwise facilitated this type of debate in a manner that promotes Trump's view of public good, that conduct was the opposite of corrupt. It's to expose the corruption, and it doesn't violate the law because you disagree that it was corrupt. You say it wasn't, we say it was. That's for the public to decide, and we have these debates about it. You don't turn around and criminally charge somebody. Now, the lack of obstruction and corrupt intent is underscored by the fact that Congress even changed the law in 2022 to say now what Jack's office apparently wishes the statute said back in 2020. And moreover, congressional remarks during the J6 debates established that there is historical precedent for certificate objections. You're allowed to do that. Some claim today that today's objection set new precedent by challenging state electors. That claim, of course, ignores that Democrats have objected every time a Republican candidate has won an election over the past generation. They object all the time. Jamie Raskin was objecting to Trump. Not since 1985 has a Republican president been sworn in absent some Democrat effort to object to the electors. But when we do it, it is the new violation of all the norms. And what are the Democrats objecting to the electors with? Why are they calling for an objection? Because they have an alternate theory about irregularities in the underlying election. Raskin did it. Never got indicted or had his home raided. Now, thus, there is a long history of similar lawful efforts in connection to this, but there's no corresponding history of criminal prosecutions arising for activities that were provided for and allowed under the law under the ECA at the time. And so these other counts should be dismissed as well, Judge. Now, consistent with the fact that Jack's office has failed to present factual allegations suggesting that Trump acted corruptly, quotes, they have not adequately alleged that he intended to violate these other statutes as well. Similar to this, these are legally unsustainable applications, and you must reject this approach because the Supreme Court says so. Now, the indictment also lacks factual allegations to support this charge. Trump's public advocacy was consistent with historical practice, and he was allowed to do this under the Electoral Count Act. He's allowed to ensure the integrity of the election and to make sure that the right to vote is protected. Now, for the same reason, Jack's office cannot establish that unlawfulness under the Constitution was apparent. This is fatal to specific intent requirement. Trump needed to specifically intend, essentially, to cause the outcome. To hold otherwise would assign an untenable scope to the statute, similar to the unlawful breadth that the DOJ unsuccessfully advocated. There's no fair notice here. It's got vagueness defects, and so count 4 should also be dismissed. Now, as to this final count, 371, it's also unlawfully broad. Their interpretation would cast a pall of potential prosecution over the basic compact underlying representative government, which is that public officials listen to their constituents. The Supreme Court confirmed that if you criminalize this, it could present unique risks to the functioning of the government. And this is the sort of overbroad, atextual interpretation of criminal law that they're trying to apply to Trump. And so, for the foregoing reasons, as well as those set forth in the prior filings, this superseding indictment should be dismissed. Signed by Trump's defense, Todd Blanche, Emil Bove, John Lauro, Gregory Singer. Nice filing here. And this is curious. So when we read this in conjunction with the other order and the other filing, we now know that Trump is not going to have his full response submitted before the election, but that was a pretty nice response. Trump's ultimate response will be due November 7th, rather. But there was a good helping of details in there showing us how Trump's defense is materializing. And just on the statutes alone, Jack is not checking the boxes that the Supreme Court has set, right? There was one theory. Jack came in, he thought that he had to hit A, B, C, and D. The Supreme Court said, no, it's X, Y, and Z. It's much narrower, sorry. And even on his new indictment, he can't meet those elements. So a logical, legal dissection of what Jack Smith is trying to prove here, but very nicely argumented, very detailed. and argued very detailed. And so we'll see where that goes. Jack Smith will respond to that. Now, Trump is reacting to Jack Smith and his new filing. Here's what the president himself has said.
We know that Special Counsel Jack Smith had filed court documents calling your actions in the aftermath of the 2020 election, quote, a private criminal effort. Can you respond to that?
He's a deranged person. I call him deranged Jack Smith. He just lost the big documents case. That was the biggest of them all. They said the documents case, and they said that was the toughest of them all. Let me tell you, we just won it, and it was won strongly and completely. And it was a total victory in Florida. And he is a person who is trying, and he works for Kamala and he works for Joe. This was a weaponization of government, and that's why it was released 30 days before the election. And it's nothing new in there, by the way. Nothing new.
Yeah, exactly.
They rigged the election. I didn't rig the election. They should have never allowed the information to come before the public. But they did that because they want to hurt you with the election. It's pure election interference to get an incompetent person like Kamala. She's grossly incompetent. She's more incompetent than Biden to get these people elected.
Yeah, so Trump is exactly right. He is a deranged thug. It is election interference. They are dropping it in violation of their DOJ manual, their own policy that says don't make any sudden moves when we're this close to an election. They thought this is the right time. This is the best time. October surprise. Judge Chutkan drops the filing, but Trump is right. We said this yesterday. There's not much new in there. We already heard it from Liz Cheney. In fact, they made up a bunch of stuff. Remember when they had to go dig up this gal, Clavicle Girl? They drug her back out from the gutter. And they had her around some time ago with the rest of the J6 Spice Girls. A lot of Spice Girls groups that are populating these days. But they had her with the other gal from The View, and then the other gal nobody remembers. So they were showing them around and saying, tell me how much Trump has wrecked your life or whatever. So she is now back out, part of a new propaganda cluster bomb that is underway. Kamala's hanging out with Liz Cheney. They both love war now together. Clavicle Girl's back. She made up her entire story, I think, on the third or fourth meeting with Liz Cheney. And then Liz Cheney called urgently another sudden hearing. And she came out in white and said, Trump reached across and grabbed him by the clavicle. And then everybody who was around her said that that wasn't true. Nobody confirmed it at all. Totally made up. Liz Cheney needed that to show that Trump was some sort of a maniac. It wasn't true. She's a liar. So, of course, what did they do? They brought her on MSNBC.
Much in your book that we should be discussing.
She wrote a book? You're kidding.
That book and your experience and what you went through. I thought that was more important. And the question of how you're going to vote would take focus off of that. I also sensed, I may be wrong, that was not something you were really ready to talk about. November's coming very quickly. We've heard Liz Cheney go out there and go all the way from opposition to Donald Trump to now actively saying, yes, you have to. She believes the right vote is actually to vote for Kamala Harris.
Yes, because she's a warmonger.
Where is your thinking on how
you're on
the
same team?
I've known for quite a long time, number one, that I would never in my life vote for Donald Trump.
That you made clear. That you did make clear. Yeah.
I hope so. Thank you for acknowledging that. I have also known for a long time, whether the nominee was at one point going to be Joe Biden, now Kamala Harris, that I was going to cast my vote for either candidate, now Kamala Harris.
Well, I was hoping she was going to develop some personality over the last couple months or years or however long she's been out of the limelight, but apparently that didn't happen. So she's still about as bland and like a wet noodle as we've ever seen. And of course, that's why she got manipulated by Liz Cheney. Now she's writing books and is hanging out with whatever that guy's name is on MSNBC. So there's more. Chuck Grassley, he said, Jack Smith's court filing that was released is part of a case that was started by a former FBI official, Theobald, who was forced to retire because of extreme anti-Trump political bias. My oversight revealed this. This case was politicized from the start. Releasing this info this way reeks of undeniable partisan tactics. That's from Chuck Grassley, great senator, and we're happy to see him. We've also got Navarro. We're happy to see him. He's out of custody, one of the most recent political prisoners released from federal custody. after being targeted by the Biden administration. Here is what Navarro said about J6 and the election.
Read it. I think there are things that need yet to be investigated. It took 30 years for us to acknowledge that Kennedy stole the election from Nixon. I think historians will
we're
look
not
at this.
doing Kennedy-Nixon night. You don't acknowledge the Trump loss.
I stand by the report I wrote. I think there's great uncertainty. And look, Rory, for whatever you can say, half of the American people or more believe there were irregularities in that election may well have been stolen. That's the country
we're dealing in facts, not that.
And I presented 3 volumes of facts.
All right, so I'm going to go
Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and I can show you every different state.
Can I actually
things that would make you read it?
It's good to have Peter back. Thanks for that, Peter. Nice that he's back on with those people. So we have more. Now, this is from the Committee on the Judiciary. You can see that a bunch of House of Representative members, people like Thomas Massey, big fan, Jim Jordan in the House, Ben Klein, Chip Roy, Victoria Sparks. We got Dan Bishops here, Barry Moore, Andy Biggs coming in, Harriet Hageman, who beat the crap out of Liz Cheney by 40 points. Shout out to Harriet. We love you. And Matt Gaetz in the House, all sending in this letter to the Honorable Merrick Garland. Honorable. They say, all right, listen, hey, Mayor, during your questioning before our committee in June, Chairman Massey asked you a series of questions about Inspector General Michael Horowitz's forthcoming report on the DOJ and its components' actions before, during, and in response to the events that occurred on January 6th at the Capitol. In response to these questions, you testified that Inspector General Horowitz, you said, is independent. Yeah, right. And, quote, the determination of the release of the Inspector General reports is up to the Inspector General. Now, you acknowledged that the Justice Department gives them independence because Congress demands that we give them independence. And so we are writing to you, Merrick, to remind you of your commitment. Now, last week, Inspector General Horowitz testified before the Select Committee on the Weaponization of the Government, talking about you, and that his J6 related report was in draft form and pending classification review with you, the department. And as Attorney General Merrick, you speak for the entire department, and we appreciate your commitment that the DOJ will not attempt to exert control over Inspector General Horowitz with respect to this report. We expect that neither you nor anyone at the DOJ will prevent Inspector Horowitz from releasing this report in his preferred manner at his preferred time. And as you stated, Merrick, on June 24th, you cannot stop Horowitz from doing what the law requires. Now, accordingly, if you or any of your subordinates or associates or agents within the department act to interfere with the release of this report, Merrick, Congress will hold you accountable, bucko. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter. Sincerely, your friends in Congress, Massey, Jordan, Ben Klein, and others. And so a nice letter warning Merrick to stop his shenanigans. He is not going to stop his shenanigans at all. The report will likely be redacted and rigged. And the idea that we're going to get the truth about how many government agents were there is laughable, at least from this administration. Next administration, we get a little RFK Jr. up in the House. Hopefully we get some of these documents, the true documents, released and unsealed. And meanwhile, Congress is allowing the prosecutions to happen all across the country. Tina Peters, 9 years, we saw that. And we're hopeful that she is successful on appeal and that Colorado reverses what they're doing to the people who are participating in the electoral process instead of criminalizing and prosecuting their opponents, they should be pursuing actual justice. We should all be working towards free and fair elections. By them not doing that, by them just prosecuting their opponents, they're undermining the legitimacy and the credibility of their own system, and it's going to come crumbling down for us all. So we'll be here continuing to cover this, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and joining us as we do. Now, we're not done yet. We got some other stuff to attend to, and this one is another good one. And you can see we've got some redactions inside this document coming up. The border is worse than we even thought. This new report from Homeland Security, Office of the Inspector General, reveals in the stuff that we can read, because good portions of this are ultimately redacted, as you can see. We'll try to figure out what is inside of this, including some of their concluding remarks and recommendations, like maybe not letting terrorists in the country. But it's a big problem that the CBP, ICE, TSA, they did not fully assess the risks that are associated with releasing illegal aliens without ID into the U.S. and then allowing them to hop on domestic flights and fly wherever they want. Here's the report. It's not good. This came out September 30th. The subject is about these risks, and it is a report with some attachments. But here are the highlights. They say, although our law enforcement agencies, ICE and Border Patrol, although they have policies and they have procedures to check the identity of non-citizens, aliens seeking entry into the United States, they cannot always verify their identities. I wonder why. According to federal law, non-citizens without ID are not admissible into the country and shall be detained. That's what the law says. However, ICE and Border Patrol officials are permitted to release non-citizens into the United States based on various conditions and considerations. And prior to releasing these individuals, these immigration officers, they accept self-reported biographical information, which they use to issue various immigration forms. Once in the United States, they can hop on domestic flights and go wherever they want. Now, non-citizens without TSA acceptable ID are allowed to board domestic flights. Before doing so, TSA requires them to undergo vetting and additional screening to make sure they're not terrorists or something. Now, transportate with it, even though they don't know. TSA officials query law enforcement and immigration databases to validate the information that is probably not real that was given to them, to validate information on the immigration forms, but they're just whatever they say they are. Hi, sir. Welcome to America. Kamala welcomes you here. We're excited to give you a cell phone, a hotel room, and a credit card. Just a couple things I need from you before we hand you the keys to your new car. Quick question. Where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from? And so, of course, this person is going to say, well, I'm definitely not from Iran, that's for sure. Definitely not from Iran, right? What's your name? My name is Mr. Not a Terrorist, right? Oh, perfect. Mr. Not a Terrorist, who's definitely not from Iran. Here are the keys to your car. Welcome aboard. So then they come in and hop on an airplane. Where would you like to travel today, sir? Washington, D.C. Oh, perfect. Just need to see some ID from you. Yeah, okay. Hey, Mr. Not a Terrorist from the country of not Iran. Hop on. Now, the TSA vetting and screening procedures do not eliminate the risk that non-citizens who may pose a threat to fellow passengers could board domestic flights. Redacted, 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 redacted. Don't know what that means. For example, one of them might blow up an airplane. For example, one of them might, who knows? Under current processes, Border Patrol and ICE cannot ensure that they are keeping high-risk non-citizens without ID from entering the country. What does high risk even mean? Let's see. Additionally, TSA cannot ensure its vetting and screening procedures also prevent high risk non-citizens who may pose a threat to the flying public from boarding domestic flights. Okay, that is terrorist bombers is what they're talking about. High risk non-citizens, exploding people who might pose a threat to the flying public. Great. Now, the Department of Homeland did not concur with our recommendations. And we'll see what they say about all this. Now, the immigration and national, here's some background. It outlines requirements for the inspection, admissibility of, and the removal of non-citizens. They secure the nation's borders. It's hilarious. By preventing inadmissible people and illicit goods from entering the United States. Hilarious. He's probably laughing his ass off as he wrote that. Hilarious. Yeah, right. All right. Yeah, I'm sure they do. 2 offices. I'm sure a lot of them try to. Yeah, but they don't. 2 offices within the Border Patrol process non-citizens. Okay, so they process them. The TSA is responsible. We got it. Now, our objective was to determine the extent of Border Patrol and ICE and their policies and how they deal with these people coming in. Now, here's how it works. Here are the results of the evaluation. Turns out, according to enforcement statistics, officers encountered more than 3.2 million non-citizens in fiscal 2023. That's a lot, including 2.4 million encounters at the southwest border. Now, when ICE immigration officers encountered non-citizens who arrive, these individuals are generally considered applicants for admission and are subject to inspection. They just show up. Hey, welcome. Here's an application. Procedures an immigration officer may perform during this inspection. So they show up like, who are you? Okay, what's up? Here's the first step. Fresh across the border, first step. They review their ID and travel documents if they have any. They get their biographical and biometric info and they put it into DHS. They interview them, they collect DNA samples, and then they question and query immigration and law enforcement databases for derogatory information using the biographical and the biometric data obtained. Now, if their inspection yields derogatory information, depending on the nature of the information, non-citizens may be deemed inadmissible and refused admission, but probably not. Now, they could be detained. They could be released into the United States pending immigration hearings or review, which is where the bulk of them are. Now, ICE immigration officers then assign them unique alien registration numbers as a personal identifier. The A numbers then go on the forms. And you can see here's one scene, what it looks like. This person has come into the country, non-citizen, alien, and they're getting their fingerprint. If non-citizens do not have identification, like such as an unexpired visa, unexpired passport, or other things, immigration officers may deny their admission and subject them to removal. Yeah, right. However, if non-citizens without ID indicate that they intend to apply for asylum, which is what they all say, or express a fear of persecution, are you afraid? Yeah. Then they're going to refer them for a credible fear interview. If the asylum officers determine those claims are credible, which they always are, these non-citizens may be released into the country, and they are. We've seen the numbers. Now then, immigration officers can also parole non-citizens temporarily for urgent humanitarian reasons or for significant public benefit. Before releasing non-citizens, they issue them documents. If they do not have ID, then they accept their self-reported info and they use that info to populate the forms. They also collect photographs and fingerprints. Additionally, a DNA sample may be collected if they're over 14. Now, they have procedures for this. They have policies and procedures for screening non-citizens, but neither component knows how many non-citizens without ID documents are released into the country. What on earth? They don't even know the numbers. It shows you what a disgusting joke this is. They have policies and procedures for screening non-citizens, but neither component knows how many non-citizens without ID are released into the country. Here are the guidelines. Here's a description. There's manuals, parole. This provides guidance, right? All these are documents, policy documents, guidance documents. As part of our review, we observed Border Patrol officers and agents processing 53 non-citizens at 2 ports of entry, Arizona and California, and other stations. During our visits, we watched immigration officers review travel documents when available. So they're watching them. Did you guys read the manuals? We're just going to come shadow you today. They got photographs, fingerprints, and more. We also observed officers and agents entering non-citizens' info into the systems. We noted that 7 of the 53, or 13%, had no ID. So 13% of people coming across out of millions is a lot. We requested data on the number of non-citizens who did not have ID and who were released. Because immigration officers are not required to document whether they have ID, the data is incomplete. They don't even know. Therefore, neither ICE nor Border Patrol could determine how many of the millions of non-citizens seeking entry into the United States entered without ID, or whose self-reported biographic info was accepted. So no ID, no idea. Don't even know the number. And immigration officers that were interviewed acknowledged the risks of allowing non-citizens without ID into the country, because Mr. I'm not a terrorist comes in and he just could be a terrorist. But neither ICE nor Border Patrol conducted a comprehensive risk assessment for these non-citizens because they don't care. TSA also requires non-citizens without acceptable ID to go through screening. They do require that passengers provide a form of ID before getting on aircraft. But individuals who do not have an acceptable ID may still fly on TSA if they can validate through other means. Once in the United States, non-citizens processed by DHS can travel on domestic flights. And there's something redacted here. If non-citizens do not have acceptable ID, then TSA will use DHS-issued documents blank and blank and blank to initiate procedures to validate this. And then they have the app too, okay? When using the CBP-1 app, the transportation security officer takes a photograph, then they try to match the photograph. And if they can't confirm a match, they get a red X. Okay, this is your confirmed, this is your not confirmed. If there shows an example, this shows redacted, blank, 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 blank. Information from the non-citizens goes to the call center representative for validation. The representative then queries and makes a determination. When the app is available, all transportation security goes through the app. And there's more redactions down here. Now, because of these processes for inspecting these non-citizens, the methods to screen for individuals who would pose a threat would not necessarily prevent these individuals from boarding flights. Yikes. Okay, so that's scary. So this is all redacted. So we checked here, someone failed. This was a failure. We failed on this. According to the TSA administrator, TSA relies on Border and ICE to collect this stuff, to conduct these background checks. And so TSA's requirements and capabilities previously conducted an assessment that emphasized the risk of non-citizens whose ID cannot be confirmed. It's like security theater. Specifically, in a June 2021 analysis of the risks associated with the Border Patrol app as a screening tool, TSA's Operational Risk and Case Studies Group within the Requirements and Capabilities Analysis Office concluded that what? They're going to blow up a plane any minute? Look at this. The TSA's Risk and Case Studies Group, seems like this might be important for us to know, you know? Like what? Like the planes are going to explode because we have terrorists on there? Additionally, TSA provided us with an updated CBP-1 app risk assessment marked pre-decisional. The document is signed and dated according to TSA. And in it, it says, we're all going to die if we let this happen too, so you can't read about it. Now, in recent reports, we documented similar weaknesses that allowed high-risk individuals into the country. For example, one non-citizen released into the United States in 2022 was later found to be on the FBI terror watch list. How'd he get in here? Oops. We also identified at least 2 persons paroled into the United States as part of Operations Allies Refugee, Operation Allies Welcome, that may have posed a threat to national security and to the safety of local communities. And finally, in June 2024, we reported that DHS's biometric system The automated biometric identification system could not access all data from federal partners to ensure complete screening and vetting of non-citizens. So the systems don't even work. And specifically, we determined that Border Patrol could not access all of the biometric data held by the DOD, which contains the watch list. And so in conclusion, redacted, fix your stuff. They've developed and implemented policies and procedures. However, their efforts are terrible. If Border Patrol and ICE continue to allow non-citizens whose identity immigration officers cannot confirm to enter the country, they may inadvertently increase national security risks. They're basically telling us that it's wide open. We recommend they conduct a comprehensive risk assessment and analysis. And we recommend that they do what the app fixes require. And so it's pretty bad out there. You can see that's the report. Now, Border Patrol and Homeland disagree. They said this report, Homeland, according to Bill Malugin, says, this report contains inaccurate statements, lacks context, and is misleading about our efforts to verify and identify non-citizens. Yeah. We reject the OIG's core recommendations because they're premised on a fundamental misunderstanding of our policies, which already incorporate numerous measures to minimize risk. The report does not reflect the policy and the procedural updates that we've implemented, and we're doing a great job. Every individual is processed and removed. If and when new information emerges, DHS will work closely with the FBI and other partners to take appropriate action. So a pretty damning report, and it's about what you'd expect. There's virtually nothing stopping somebody who's motivated, who wants to do damage to the country, from getting in. Just sign up on the app, come in, tell them you're Mr. Not a Terrorist from definitely not a bad country. They'll let you in, they'll give you keys and turn you loose, and nobody can do anything about it. In fact, they're enabling it, and that's our own government. Terrible. All right, so we've got one more story on the day, my friends, and then we're going to hear from you and see what you say about all this. Let's turn our attention to Arizona. What is going on in Arizona? We've got a big bucket of over 200,000 votes that we're trying to figure out what to do with. These voters are registered, but not proven to be citizens. There's a lot of complexity here, and we've got one party who's trying to get some answers. They are America First Legal. You know who they are. Hopefully you're following them on X. But they're filing a lawsuit now in the state of Arizona against Adrian Fontes, the Secretary of State, because we have questions about our problematic elections. Now, here is what the lawsuit says. They're trying to get access just to public records to know how many of these voters are going to be disenfranchised or what is going to be the outcome here. And the Secretary of State is being very squirrely with his answers. So the lawsuit begins, it's against state and federal law for foreign citizens to register to vote. And state law requires that you actually prove you're a citizen. Now, 60% of Arizonans, and I'm sure it's higher than this, and probably this statistic is not limited to Arizona, are concerned that cheating will affect the outcome of the election, 60%. In a statistically valid survey of Arizona of August, 1.9% of likely voters said that they are not U.S. citizens. See that stat? An additional 1.18% responded they're not sure if they're citizens. Therefore, collectively, just over 3% of likely Arizona voters in the survey disclaimed citizenship. It's not good. Now, many recent electoral races in Arizona have been decided by margins less than 1%. For example, a recent national survey of likely voters found that 52% believe that election officials are either doing nothing to prevent foreign citizens from voting or they're not doing enough. Only 26% believe that election officials have effective plans to deal with foreigners voting. Another survey said that 55% of likely U.S. voters believe it is likely that non-citizens are illegally registered to vote in the state where they live. 32% say it's very likely. Numbers are high. And so this lawsuit is seeking to restore public trust in the state system. With public confidence in elections so low, the need for transparency has never been higher. Arizona's public records law is designed especially for times like this, so we can see what's happening. And there's a strong presumption in favor of showing us these materials. Now, the government here has admitted to gross failures in their duties. These failures in Arizona allowed over 218,000 individuals to register to vote without providing documentary proof of citizenship as required by law. And we've covered this for a while. Remember, the number was about half that, about 98,000 people. And those people, turns out, were mostly Republicans. They'd been on the rolls for a very long time. And it seemed very interesting that Stephen Richer, the gentleman who lost his race and is not going to be in office anymore, is now suddenly concerned about those voters. And the result, if he would have gotten his way, which at this point he has not, would have been to make those voters only get federal ballots so that they would not be participating in local state races, which we've got propositions and other things. So in other words, the Republicans theoretically would lose about 100,000 people from the state races, which would be great for the other side. But then something interesting happened. That number has now like doubled, 218,000. Now we're asking ourselves, wait, okay, who were those voters? Now, are those people who are probably citizens or are those the illegal voters? We're asking ourselves, how is this all coming about? And why do we keep discovering new buckets of people that don't have citizenship? Now, the plaintiffs filed the lawsuit here, record request to seek a list of these people. Who is on this list? Alarmingly, rather than fulfilling their statutory duty and fulfilling the request promptly, Arizona government officials are stonewalling and they've unlawfully refused to fill it. They're insulating themselves from their embarrassment. Apparently, that's more important than them following the law. Now, the government and their denial of our reasonable and targeted public requests is backwards. They bear the burden of showing why they shouldn't give us these materials. And so we have been wrongfully denied our records. And we're demanding recourse. They tell us Adrian Fontes, the secretary, administers Arizona's elections. On September 6, Richer identified a flaw in the Arizona system that allowed tens of thousands of individuals to register to vote, even though they didn't have proof of citizenship on file. Now, more specifically, Fontes and the governor's office, Katie Hobbs, and Arizona DOT, they all just got together. They're like, oh no, let's get our heads together and see if we can figure this out. We've identified a flaw in Arizona's DMV, Arizona's DOT, Department of Transportation licensing process. And it's also interesting because we had the best, safest, most secure, not questionable election ever in 2020, and now there's a flaw in the system. Oh, interesting. And that caused voter registrations received after January 24th from individuals who got a driver's license before this, right? So very, very detailed lists here, but received a duplicate copy to inaccurately to be understood as having provided proof of citizenship, right? So the list just got wonky. Now, as of September 18th, Fontes claimed to have identified 98,000 voters, right? We knew who these people were. And you think about this, right? Just think about who these people are. So they got a driver's license in Arizona before 1996. Most of our illegal immigration problem has been in the last decade, let's say. So this is people who've probably been here for a long time. And then they got a duplicate copy of their license, and their registration was after the fact. So it's probably people who've been in Arizona for a long time, made up the 97,000, and who may have been erroneously marked as not having provided citizenship, right? So the Republican Party came out, like, these are our voters, like 2/3 are Republicans. So we definitely want them to be counted in the state races. But then all of a sudden, we found a bunch of new flaws. This flaw was revealed to the public when Richer filed an emergency petition with Arizona because he wanted them to only become federal-only voters, meaning they could not participate in state and local races at all. Then, all of a sudden, we have 98,000 people who are on that list, and the Republicans came out and they're like, we keep them on the ballot, right? Give them ballots, keep them on the list. Then all of a sudden, what happened is on September 30th, the Secretary Adrian came out. He's like, you're not going to believe this. Guess what? We found a new set of approximately 120,000 Arizonans who may be affected by a data coding oversight with the Arizona voter registration databases. Oh no! Another 120,000 voters. Now, within hours of Richer filing his emergency petition on the 17th, seeking to disenfranchise 98,000 voters, they submitted a public records request saying, hey, we want to know who you identified. Now, they then noted that the records were sought because this information is directly related to another lawsuit about failures to submit lists to confirm immigration status, right? So more lawsuits are happening. And they also noted that we need these because there's pending litigation. This organization also sent a letter to Adrian Fontes and his attorney. So they're just documenting their communication. Say this, okay, we filed a record request. We noted in our email this. Then we sent that letter to Fontes via email to his lawyer. Then we submitted a request through the records portal. Then we forwarded a copy to Fontes' public records custodian. Then at 2:56, they contacted us through the portal and they requested. Then at 2:59, we did that. And then on September 24th, then they responded to our request, our public records request, and they refused it, claiming that the records requested will be made available for inspection at the soonest time possible, but no access will occur before the 2024 election. Wait a minute. Whoa. You're not going to give us any details about your newly discovered lists? So the denial letter offered no valid justification under Arizona law for this response. Wait a minute, you're not going to give us the records? The law says we are entitled to it. Rather, they based the denial on their unfounded assumptions about the ulterior motives of us. They said, we fear that your true desire for these records is not to keep watch on government actions, which are public records. What the hell is this? But instead harass and intimidate voters in the midst of an election whose rights Fontes has already vindicated before Arizona's highest courts. Do you see what's happened here? Whoa. Okay, I think I can see what's happened. This is totally speculation, but if I had to fill in the gaps, they set the Republican Party up, okay? The first 98,000 people, that was only half the list. They have a bad list. They have a good list and a bad list. So they came out with a good list and they said, "Oh no, what do you Republicans want to do about this? Should we keep them on the list or kick them off?" Republicans came out and said, "Keep them on, keep them on." And they said, "Oh great. So your position is you want to keep people on the list." Well, now that we know that, let's show you another 120,000 people that we've just discovered. That's the bad list. That's their side, right? So then they get that list now, and they say, well, they're going to be on the ballot. However, no reasonable person would have a good faith basis for drawing any such inferences from our filings. So they're just denying it. You're in bad faith. We can't show you this list because it's ulterior motive. Yeah. However, no reasonable person would have a good faith basis. Now, accordingly, the basis for the denial was made in bad faith. They claim that privacy and security can overcome the presumption of public records of access. They failed to cite any privacy or security exception at all. Now, their privacy claim is nonsensical because on or about August 7th, they already produced the entire voter registration database to us. So we already have it all. We just need to know who's on the list. In fact, they've already produced the entire database because they have a statutory obligation to produce this upon request. Now, we just want a subset of the database, but they claim that denial of the record request was in our best interest because the information is also imperfect or unreliable, and that producing such information would harm the public by causing confusion or insecurity or harm and it would cause administrative chaos. They're not going to give us the records because it's bad for them to do that. However, there is no exception for imperfect or unreliable information. If the state is maintaining imperfect or unreliable information, that's exactly why we need to see it. This is a gross failure in violation of public trust. And their denial letter failed to articulate any specific harm as to why we cannot have these materials. In essence, the state's best interest that they invoke here would be embarrassment to them and expose them to public criticism for their failures. Indeed, bringing transparency to this is exactly why we have public records laws in the first place. And yeah, it might be an administrative burden for you, but that's the point. Your own words betray you there, Adrian Fontes. The denial letter acknowledges that you have already complied with the information we requested. We just need to know what list it is. Indeed, it's obvious. They've compiled all the necessary information. Otherwise, they would not have been able to publicly announce the number of voters affected. So there is no burden at all. They've already compiled this stuff. They don't have to go and do a bunch of work. Just give it to us. Even if there were merits to their excuses, the public interest in this transparency is much broader. And so contrary to their claims, they need to give us these materials. They are hiding the documents because they do not want us to see this, signed by James K. Rogers, America First Legal Foundation. And we're watching something very strange happening here. They gave us the first list. We were able to identify that the first half of the list, the 98,000, were Republicans. Then they dropped another 120,000 in there. And they don't want to tell us who's on that list. Isn't that convenient? All right, my friends. Now let's see what you say about all of this and more. If you're just joining us, tomorrow we are going to be speaking at this virtual conference. I would love it if you joined us. It's going to be at 10:15 Arizona time, 1:15 East Coast time, but I'd encourage you to come check this out. So it's going to be Defending Democracy virtual conference. It's tomorrow. The link is down in the description below. And if you sign up, you can come have a full day of law analysis, baby. It's going to be great. You can see Rachel Alexander is going to be there. There's your boy. I'm speaking. We've got representatives from the Dillon Law Group are going to be there. John Eastman is going to be there starting bright and early tomorrow. So definitely come and check it out. I'd love to have you join us. I think this type of stuff is important. This type of work is important. And they're putting in a lot of work to assemble all of these cool people to come and talk. Meryl Nass founded the Door to Freedom and talking about some COVID stuff. Her medical license was suspended. Like, these are going to be great stories. And then Joseph Sweeney, who you heard from here, is going to be there tomorrow. So come join us. We're going to do for members. We'll do a member stream in the morning, and then we're going right over there. And I think I'm speaking at 10:15 or so. And so this is the final push for this. Come join us. Come support us. Grab a ticket right here, and we'll see you tomorrow. It's going to be fun. So thanks for that. All right. And so if you're just joining us, then come to the event tomorrow. But if you missed it at the beginning, today we talked about a J6 witness. It was actually an impeachment witness who reversed himself. And so we had that story. We had the border report, and then we had the Arizona lawsuit. And so we had some 3 good things fresh out of the oven. Trump had a pseudo response to Jack Smith's giant book report that we covered yesterday as well. And so there is some good stuff that we got to. But now it's time to hear from you. And let's see what you have to say about this, my friends. It is a beautiful day. Hey, thanks. Just Dia says, nice shirt today. Yeah, it's a nice one, yeah? Yeah, it's a nice one. All right, let's see who's here. And we had some great donos, some great comments. You guys rock. Thanks for supporting us in all the various ways. We love you. Hey, Donut's here. Donut says, happy Thursday, everybody. Here's what that looks like. Have a nice day. Hello, Thursday. From Charlie Brown. Thank you, Donut. Donut is rocking. We really appreciate Donut helping us. Dropping links, being amazing. Thank you, Donut. Object Class Keeter says, it's funny how when the bite of the government turns out to do nothing, people start to tell the truth, at least to some extent, says Object Class Keeter. We've got This one from, thank you, Object Class, Corrections 101, bringing in himself as a new supporter. Thank you, Corrections 101. We had a great members only stream this morning. We were a little bit early for membos this morning, but it was a great talk, great meeting, great live stream. What's up, Scoop? It's not a meeting. That sounds terrible. Hey, Scoop, what's up? Says, I dropped my snack. Membo for 4 months. How quickly did you pick it up? It's probably still good. Unless it's been, well, since you submitted the super chat. Billy Rice, what's up? 4 months as a membo. Says, thanks, Tony Hay. Peace to Tony Hay. 4 months as a membo. Are you stringing those memberships together there, Billy Rice? Courtesy of Tony Hay. What's going on? Chubby over on Local says, I don't trust Sondland one bit. I sure hope Trump doesn't either. Feels more to me like he's just trying to weasel his way back into the Trump administration just to be a snake again. He testified against Trump in a blatantly bogus impeachment. No opinion, no coming back from that in my opinion. Impeachment is serious. It's not like the guy just gossiped to the media or something. You're right about that. No, you're right about that. Yeah, no, he definitely doesn't get any position of power or anything. Like, I didn't mean to imply that. Like, he's not going to ever be an ambassador again at all. But if he wants to go on Doug Emhoff's favorite show, The Beat, and give it to Ari, we'll indulge in that. That's fine. But I understand your point, Chevy. No power ever again. He's blacklisted. Cheryl, what's up? Thank you, Cheryl. Nice comment. Says, since they will be doing a drip, drip, drip on J6 during October, can you make sure we have lots of historical truth bombs from J6 to combat the disinformation? Oh, yeah, we'll stay on top of it here, Cheryl. No doubt about it. And I've got some other ideas. I'm working on some different concepts for some short forms and stuff. Some vertical videos. We're working on some stuff. So yeah, some more shareable stuff. And remember, we have the j6mindmap.com. We could go do a little trip down memory lane there too. j6mindmap.com. We accumulated a bunch of evidence over there. A lot of good details. Yeah, should be good. Jack Mack, what's up? Happy Thursday. Just wanted to say, Trump 2024, baby, in the house. Thank you, Jack. Happy Thursday to you. And thanks for the Trump train shout out, baby. We love it. Hey, Rick D says, proof that not all of the younger generation are brainwashed. Get Kleenex before watching and pray for him. It's a link over from Jack Posobiec. What's up, Jack? Thanks, Rick, for the share. We got Knox says, happy Thursday, all. Those crazy Sampaka waltz eyes. School shooters. Oh, yeah. Did you see this? Here's this story. Yeah. School shooters. You guys see this? They're now distancing themselves from Tim Walz. You see that? It's from the Babylon Bee. School shooters are now distancing themselves from Tim Walz. You don't want to be affiliated with somebody who's so psycho. Definitely don't want to do that. Yeah, good call. All right. Hey, what's up? James Grant in the house. James Grant, granted, is here. Bringing in 10 membos. Backseat driver, what's up? This person named DCF sleeps with tarpon brown shirts for cases. In the house as a membo. Jimmy Baker, what's up? We got Marius Bees here. M. Gem in the house. JK, James Bond, Three Finger Clay, Tall Corpsicle in the house. And Carolyn Toms in the house. Courtesy of James Grant. Thank you, James, for bringing in 10 new membos, and welcome aboard, new friends. Very nice to have you. We got Carolina Graham in the house. Carolina Graham became a supporter. Great to have you, Carolina Graham. And DCF Sleeps says, love your show, Rob. The salt is getting deep. In the house. I don't even know what this name is. DCF Sleeps with, I don't know what that is. Who's DCF? I don't know. A government agency? All right. Sheila the Pooh, what's up? Sheila the Pooh says, Colette Dunny is here, bringing in 10 membos. Xavier Logistics, welcome. Rick Allen, what's up? Nadine, we got Nemesis is Dawn. We got BR5490U8112 in the house, which probably spells something, but I can't really see it. Sean Clutter, Miss M Ball, you did what is here? And Ava Angel in the house, gifted membos, courtesy of Sheila Poo. A million hugs to you, bringing in new membos. We got this one from Knox, says, I donated to Desert Davos on the GoFundMe page. Nice group, Robert. Thank you, Knox. So awesome. So Knox, hopefully you can join us tomorrow. Yeah, so grab a ticket, make a donation, and come over, support the org. You can see it's a lot of work to assemble all these people together. And so, a lot of good people are going to be there. And I'll be excited to see you there. Thanks, Knox, for supporting them. We need more of this type of stuff out there. More of these types of legal things from the conservative side. And so they're working on it. Hey, Sheila Poo, thank you for this. Smash that like button and share the channel. Thank you for the reminder, Sheila. And my friends, Sheila knows what she's talking about. It's good advice. Hey, Russ. What's up, Russ? Thanks for becoming a supporter. Great to see you. We'll see you on the members only stream tomorrow. Patriot Rob says, do you realize Kamala still has to certify the election, whether or not she wins or loses? Yeah, right. Yeah, she'll be there. She's the president of the Senate. It'll be the same kind of reverse situation as Pence, which will be a lot of fun. Object Class Keeter says a T win, H would be third VP to certify their loss. Harris would be, yeah. Is that right? So, okay. Yeah, I mean, Pence obviously wasn't running for his reelection, but he had to certify Trump's loss, which, sucks. But yeah, that's interesting. Good to see you, Flea Speech. Although that kind of happens, I guess, every election, right? Somebody certifying somebody's loss. Flea Speech or victory. Flea Speech says, thank you, Bobby G, over on Rumble. Says, it's going to be so sweet to watch Scamala announce her own defeat in the Senate as VP. Love from Denmark. Amazing. Thanks for watching from Denmark. Shout out to our friends in Denmark. Love that. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be good for the country and the world. Sheila Poo, 10 more membos coming in. Atlas Shrugged in the house. Welcome. Pat Hacker, John gifted a membo. Luke's here. Valerie W. Bill Streets. We got Kathy Bentley. Ricky Bobby's here. Jolly Joe Mama. We got Joycey JD gifted membos courtesy of Sheila Poo in the house. A million hugs to you. Thank you, Sheila, and welcome aboard. New friends. Salty Sarge says Clavicle Girl got paid through a book deal as usual. She may have dolled herself up, but there's not a personality transplant available yet. Fight the good fight, Rob. Thank you, Salty Sarge. We're on it. We're on it. Yeah, the book deal. Okay. Anyone reading her book? I'm sure it's very exciting. Does she do the reading of it? Oh my gosh. Bedtime stories. Marlene Stewart, membo for 15 months. Says, if Harry Walls gets elected, what happens to freedom of religion? That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, the First Amendment's already under attack. They're raiding Catholics and stuff like that. You protest abortion, you get, incarcerated. So, yeah, it's probably going to be a new area of attack. Certain religions will be allowed or promoted by the government, and others will not. I think you can see where that one will go. What's going on? Elvis of Dallas. Good to see you, Elvis of Dallas in the house. Bringing in 10 new membos. Thanks, Elvis, for doing this. We got Chuck Ward. What's up, Chuck? Jason Etheridge. Emmett Bishop here. Jana Bell. Philip Darden. Smokestack Lightning. Rachel Weideman. William Hawkins. What's up, Sam E? And Mana Online in the house. And James Butler shouting out. Elvis of Dallas. Thank you, Elvis, for bringing in new membos. Hey, Libby T. Have a great day, Libby T. We love you. Bringing in 5 membos. William Meyer, Top Load Telly, Benny Truth, Hangman 420, and Stephanie Best, gifted membos. Thank you, Libby T, for bringing them in and being a membo yourself. We got Sheila Poo. Says there is more redacted than is left readable. The good stuff, for sure. All the good stuff was redacted in that one, which was a bummer. Patriot Rob says, just watch the special with Glenn Beck. 99% of all people on the terrorist watch list or let go are let go into the country. I think that they don't even have functional control. It's kind of just a facade. It's Border Patrol in name only. CF Rob on Rumble says, I came here legally. I don't get why the government opens the border. Let all kind of illegal peoples Come to America. It's dangerous for the citizens. What a stupid government. This is from a legal immigrant. We do have a stupid government. It's a good observation. This old guy on Locals says, I'm 75 years old, born and raised in Texas. My driver's license expires on my next birthday, so I'm required to prove my citizenship by providing a certified birth certificate or valid passport to the DMV before my next birthday. This must be accomplished by appearing for an appointment personally to present these documents in order to renew my driver's license or to convert it to a Texas ID card. Pain in the butt, except I'm happy to comply and proud that my state takes this seriously. Yeah, that is a lot of work. And thank you for doing that. Yeah, thank you for doing that. We want your vote. Obviously, we want you to keep participating in that. But yeah, it's a lot of work. And, ideally, our government would be more competent so that they wouldn't have to do that. We'd share some data so we know, that who you are and stuff like that. Or alternatively, that we didn't have a monstrous illegal alien problem so that this was even necessary, right? We don't have to go through all this stuff because there's not 10, 15, 20, 30 million people who shouldn't be here. But thanks, this old guy. And good inspiration for those who are, maybe out there and like, should I get registered yet? Kind of a pain in the butt. It's a pain in the butt, some of this stuff, but we got to do it. And thank you, this old guy. Grip Van Wrinkled, says, got some melodic instrumentals for you, if you like. Wish You Were Weird, 1864, etc. on my YouTube channel. That sounds awesome, actually. Yeah, I love instrumentals. Melodic instrumentals. I like music with no vocals. So that sounds great. Grip Van Wrinkled. All right, Jennifer says, Newsom has banned requiring IDs to vote, Robert. What do I do? Well, I think you still have to vote. Are you in California? You still have to vote, obviously. So I guess do the same thing and just weather the storm in California. I guess that's all you can do. You're in California, Jennifer? Didn't know that. Good to see you. Yeah, California's a mess. Will Crump says, what actual crimes can Dems be charged with and convicted of if Trump is elected and gets a rock-solid conservative AG with balls to pursue the charges? I honestly, the same charges that they've hit him with in many cases. Just flip that around on them. Like there's a massive conspiracy to weaponize the government against him so they could charge him with a RICO case and just do what Fannie did. But there's, conspiracy against rights. Like we've talked about some of those other possibilities, but I think there's no end to the charges. Many conspiracy charges, and perversion of public office types of offenses. Thank you, Will. Les L says, in DeKalb County, YouTube clicks still get deceptive Harris ads that Trump plans national sales tax costing $4,000 per family, but Harris will reach across the aisle. We need counter ads here. Yeah. Willie says, I've been getting a ton of Kamala ads here too. They're spending money, man. They're spending big money. It's all over Arizona. We're getting blown up with them too. Ella says, remember Real ID? I was forced to get one because of my work, but the voter ID is an issue? Yeah, well, they want ID for you, but not for the illegals or something. Thank you for that, Ella. We got Les L. Robert, could you yell at a Republican PAC for us? Sure, happy to. It'd be a shame to see a red wave turn into a sloppy pink phone in Georgia and lose everything here via a weak ad campaign. All right, listen up, you Republican PACs! Get your act together and run some better ads. For crying out loud, you're driving Les L crazy. Hopefully that does something, Les. I hope they figure it out over there. John Allen says, not much to say. Thanks, John. Dono, just because I love you, brother. Thank you, John Allen. We love you back. Thanks for seeing. Good to see you, John. Thanks for popping in and saying hello. It's nice to see you. What's up, Tammy Clayton? In the house, became a new supporter. Welcome aboard, Tammy. We'll see you tomorrow morning in our members only morning stream. We got Acid Burn. Rob, is there a chance martial law can be called to stop an election? I mean, less of a crazy thought the closer we inch to World War III and something happens or some sort of attack, some sort of global war Yeah, it could be a possibility. Sure. Hey, this old guy says in a joint statement, the United States Maritime Alliance, or USMX, and the International Longshoremen Association said that two sides have an agreement to extend their current labor contract, through January 15th and continue to negotiate. All right, good. So that's coming to a close. That's good. That's good. Get the ports back in order. Robert, thank you for the details on that, this old guy. Robert Gleba, what's up? New supporter in the house. It's great to see you, Robert. Welcome. We got Object Class Keeter says, the other two VPs I referenced are Nixon and Gore. Oh, interesting. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, those are good ones. Hey, Ollie says, Membo for 3 months. Can you give a breakdown of what you expect for the J6 trial? Kind of a big question there, Ollie. Yeah, rigged. I expect it to be rigged. What's up? John Allen says, darn it, wrong dono amount, but we fixed it. Thank you, John, for the correction. And I'm happy to have a second corrected dono. It's very nice of you, and I appreciate it. It was one of those mistakes that I'm not upset about at all. Rob says, okay, the idea of Kamala Harris giving the decision of the win of president gives me a bad reminder of a Secretary of State of yelling, Arizona, certifying herself as governor, Katie Hobbs. Hopefully I did that justice, Rob. Peng1 in the house, gifted a membo to Crypto Beauty in the house. And we love our crypto. We got, what's up, Crypto Beauty? Welcome aboard. Peng1, thanks for doing it and bringing in 5 more. Rooster Cogburn is here. Kid Seville. Jesus Freak, welcome. Lying Dog-Faced Pony Soldier is now a member of our community. Welcome. And King Jaffe in the house. And Les L says, hey, thanks for the yell, Robert. Maybe you can find a few ears to whisper into at the Democracy Conference. We're sleepwalking here in Georgia. Well, Les, I would love for you to come. I mean, come. So the event tomorrow is going to be in the chat, right? You can. It's going to be a Zoom meeting, so in the chat, maybe you can ask some questions. I'm sure there'll be Q&A stuff. So tomorrow, I'm talking about the Bragg case and where we're at there, and maybe we'll talk about some other stuff too in New York. But yeah, so that's what we're talking about. But certainly, I mean, we'll keep screaming about it. And Knox is here saying, I see tons of Kamala ads, right? Knox is confirming this too. I see tons of Kamala ads and no Trump ads. I do not have a TV, only watch podcasts on alt media right-wing places. What does that mean? It's a great question. And I think Les L is flagging it for us, like, really raising the alarm bells on it. But I don't know that the PACs are going to listen to us or what their strategy is, but I'm noticing the same thing. I mean, I see it. I don't have cable either. I have, I just stream and listen to same thing that you guys do. But when I'm at the gym, I see it all the time. It's just Kamala ads constantly. Kamala ads, abortion. So, I mean, hopefully the Republicans have some sort of a plan on that because they are getting outspent, it seems like, for sure. So, yes, Les, well, I'll continue to pound the table on that. But tomorrow, too, we'd love to have you come join us. Knox, good to see you. Rick is here. What's up, Rick? Rick D. Bringing in new membos. I'm Too Tweaked is here. E.T. shouting out. Head tap videos. We got William Shawley, Black Horse Cavalry, and Tammy gifted membos in the house, courtesy of Rick D. Thank you, Rick, for bringing in new membos. And my friends, such generous donos today. Thank you so much for sending all of those in. Let's say hello to our friends on X before we go over to Locals for our members only after party, which is where we like to hang out, debrief, see if we've got any additional comments to attend to over there. We do have a couple of people on X saying what's up. What's up? What's up? Fred Petamonte says, Rob, your analogy of he went home versus he fled the scene was one of the best I've ever heard. Thank you, Fred. Yeah, it's a good one, right? It's the same conduct, but you can conjugate it differently, right? Kind of the same thing, but just how you say it. It makes all the difference in the world. What's this? Essential Bites says, to anyone wanting to know what it means and what they are hiding behind the curtain, you should look at Watching the Watchers. 10 out of 10 stars. Thank you, Essential Bites, for knowledge in an enthusiastic, entertaining way. Thank you for that, Essential Bites. Very nice compliment. And here's one from B-Torn. Trump's lawyers sorting through Jack Smith's 165-page court briefing. It's basically what it looks like from the team. Jack's crazy conspiracy theory. Maybe he'll get something from Chutkin on it. Hey, what's up? Yeah, Les L just sent this one in. Says, I think it's the Kamala Unity ads that are the worst. A big lie, but independents may believe it. Also effective, counter possible, but it's just not getting done. Yeah, I see it. I see it here. I see her abortion ads, and they look not good. Like you're gonna die. All these women, like, oh gosh, woman after woman after woman. So it's going to be on the ballot here in Arizona, is my understanding. So we're going to have some abortion stuff. And that's my concern about the plausibility argument, is they can come back after the election and they'll say, well, nobody liked Trump, but they really liked abortion. And they got all these things on the ballots, and it was the women, whatever. But the truth of the matter is it's going to be too big to rig. People are sick and tired of the broken economy, the ongoing wars, and the incompetence. And so I think they want a serious change. So we're looking forward to that. Okay, my friends, Les, thanks for that last one coming in. Very nice to see you. And we are going to leave it there, my friends. It's going to be a beautiful day. One final plug. Come join us at Defending Democracy Conference tomorrow. Links are in the description. Go get a ticket. It would be awesome to see you there. I think this stuff's important, and this is a good group. I've spoken with David. He's doing good work. Obviously, we know Rachel. She's awesome. We know a lot of these other people like John Eastman, and they're out there trying to speak and to help get the word out about our corrupted government. So we're excited to be a part of it and looking forward to having you join us over there. Tomorrow is the day. It's going to be going on all day. Membos, if you're a membo, we're going to do our morning stream and then go over there. So come check it out. But that, my friends, is going to be it for us on the day here. We had this one come in from I Am Divine Creation. Says, how are the Helene supposed victims, how are the victims supposed to vote now? Yeah, that's a great question. And we released a segment on that. I think we talked about it on our Membo stream at some point, but there are actual provisions in the law that allow them to vote, provisionally speaking, if they can get there, right? That's the thing. It's like, well, that's nice that they can vote, but they don't have a house or a car. So how are they going to get there? And it's a real thing. So it's going to depend on, I think, a case-by-case basis. It's a hierarchy of things, right? Got to be able to survive before you can go cast a vote. So we're hopeful that they are able to recover quickly, and of course, sending our prayers and our support their way. What's up? Keith O is here. Says, did you guys see that James O'Keefe just released the OMG Undercover, where the MSNBC producers said that they were just an arm of the DNC? No, I did not see that, but I am not surprised. This sounds about right. And David D, what's up, David D? Thanks for becoming a supporter. It's great to see you. We'll see you on the members only stream tomorrow, and we're looking forward to that. But okay, my friends, that is where we will leave it on the day. It has been a beautiful Thursday. Thanks for joining us as we go through this stuff. Some of it was pretty fun today, fresh out of the oven too, and you know how much we love that. So tomorrow we are going to come back here to get into it all again. Membos, we'll see you in the morning, and we'll see you, my friends, if you join us at Defending Democracy tomorrow in the morning there as well. Otherwise, my friends, we are going to be back here tomorrow to get into it all again. Before we wrap it up, I want to thank our amazing mods. We have the best mods. Donut really clipping for us hard today. John McGarvey, Carrie B, K Bean in the house. I saw Playing Hooky out there, and we got the best mods. Thank you guys for all your help. But my friends, that is where we're going to leave it on the day. We are coming back here tomorrow to get into it all again. And in order to do that appropriately, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.